Hey, Washington Commanders fans. I have three extremely important news items that just came out and will completely change how you view the upcoming weeks of this season, and especially the future of our franchise. The first involves a roster move that some are celebrating, but that I honestly think won't make the difference everyone expects. The second is about the 2026 draft, and a recent mock that projects us picking a wide receiver who could be exactly what Jaden Daniels needs to finally have a complete offense. And the third piece of news is the most exciting of all because we finally have concrete information about the return of our biggest offensive star who has been out for weeks. Subscribe to the channel now and hit the notification bell because you can't miss any updates on the Commanders. And give that, like, if you're eager to see this team back in action with the full roster. So let's start with the first news involving Noah Brown and a move that the organization made before the matchup against the Broncos. The Washington Commanders are still desperately trying to safely bring back Jaden Daniels, but his injury continues to cause problems and delay the return that we are all eagerly waiting for. In other injury-related news, the Commanders made an important move with wide receiver Noah Brown that will impact the upcoming weeks. Surprisingly for many, it is a positive report, according to an official post by the Commanders on X. The team announced that they have opened a 21-day practice window for wide receiver Noah Brown, which means he could return to the active roster soon if all goes well during these evaluation practices. However, we are already in an extremely advanced stage of the season with only 6 games remaining, which naturally leads people to seriously question whether Brown will really have any real and measurable impact in 2025, or if it's just another move without practical consequences. And look, I need to be honest here as a fan and say what many people are thinking, but are afraid to say. The Commanders' receiver, Noah Brown, simply doesn't offer much in terms of consistent production. The Commanders can say whatever they want about their receivers' injuries and how the absence of certain players has affected the offense, but Brown simply isn't a very good player when you coldly analyze his career numbers. He is an 8-year league veteran, and his entire career yardage record is only 567 yards in a single season. He scored 3 touchdowns for the Cowboys in 2022, 2 touchdowns for the Texans in 2023, and just 1 touchdown last season for the Commanders. And that 1 touchdown he scored with us literally fell into his hands at the end of a desperate pass and a lucky play. Honestly, even a reasonably coordinated high school player could have caught that ball considering how it got to him. So I really don't understand why the Commanders act like they're losing something significant with Brown's absence from the active roster. It's extremely hard to imagine that General Manager Adam Peters actually believes he has assembled a decent and competitive group of receivers with a guy who is nearly 30 years old and was a 7th-round draft pick as the 3rd player in the position hierarchy. That just makes no sense at all. Let me show you what Dan Quinn said about Brown when the Commanders originally signed him in 2024, according to information from NFL.com at the time. Quinn stated that the first thing that comes to mind when he thinks of Noah is that he is a true natural competitor. He is a very physical player who has great experience as both a receiver and in special teams. He is a fantastic teammate by all accounts. So when they had the opportunity to add him to this group, it was a very easy decision for the entire coaching staff to make. But look, those are just nice words that coaches say about just about any player they sign. And what exactly has Brown done for us since he arrived? He had an absolutely mediocre season with 35 receptions for 453 yards in just 9 games in 2024 before getting injured again. Does anyone really wonder why the Commanders have a depressing record of 3 wins and 8 losses this season? Now, let's move on to the second piece of news that at least brings some real hope for the future, because we need to start looking at the 2026 draft and how we can finally fix this group of receivers. The Washington Commanders are literally watching their season slip through their fingers week after week. But there may be a bright light at the end of this dark tunnel. The Commanders' dreadful record of 3 wins and 8 losses in 11 games played will likely translate into a high pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. And that coveted pick is something the team will definitely be able to use to drastically improve in a position that is absolutely key for future success. USA Today contributor Ayrton Ostley recently conducted a detailed draft simulation in which the Commanders selected wide receiver Jordan Tyson from Arizona State with the 7th overall pick. And that would be a fantastic choice. Ostley explained his reasoning by saying that Washington has built a promising and solid offensive line to protect Jaden Daniels, and now the franchise urgently needs to give him some real quality options in the air game to exploit. Tyson started the year as the #1 receiver of the entire 2026 class, according to most evaluators. And that ranking simply has not changed throughout the season. He is not necessarily a pure speedster who will burn defenses with long runs, but he has the impressive ability to consistently get open on the sidelines thanks to his exceptional route running skills and the absolute reliability of his hands that rarely drop passes. The only players who were selected before Tyson in this specific mock draft were Auburn pass rusher Keldrick Falk, Ohio State linebacker Arvil Reese, Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza, Miami pass rusher Reuben Bain Jr., Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson, and Ohio State defensive back Caleb Downs. Tyson would fulfill an absolutely immediate and urgent need for the Commanders as our new number one receiver of the future. The Commanders' offense has tremendously missed Terry McLaurin throughout this disastrous season, as he has been dealing with that persistent thigh injury for practically the entire year without being able to stay healthy consistently. In his last college season, Tyson truly caught the serious attention of NFL scouts by making an impressive 75 receptions for 1,101 yards and 10 touchdowns, directly helping Arizona State win the Big 12 Conference and reach the college football playoffs. This year, he already has 59 receptions for 689 yards and 8 touchdowns, even with the season still not being fully over. While the Commanders can certainly look for solutions to other important needs at different positions, the wide receiver position absolutely must be a top priority in the draft. Now we arrive at the third and most exciting news of all, because we finally have concrete information about the possible return of Terry McLaurin. The bye week has completely passed for the Washington Commanders, and now it is definitely time to get back to the hard work for the remaining 6 weeks of the season. There has already been a lot of positive and encouraging news coming from the team in recent days, with quarterback Jaden Daniels finally returning to practice while patiently awaiting the final medical clearance for full physical contact. Many other key players like Noah Brown, whom we just discussed, and Will Harris are also gradually returning to the field during that mandatory 21-day period after coming off the injured list. But what the fans are really desperate to see is Terry McLaurin back in action on the fields. The absolute best case scenario would be the triumphant return of Daniels with his favorite and most reliable target on the field alongside him, completely ready to play together. McLaurin is another extremely important player who has missed most of this completely disastrous season due to a thigh injury that simply refuses to heal properly, and Coach Dan Quinn has finally given some encouraging hints that the all-pro wide receiver may be close to returning to the field soon. McLaurin initially suffered that frustrating thigh injury against the Las Vegas Raiders while trying to score an important touchdown, which forced him to miss the next 4 games while trying to recover fully. In his eagerly awaited return against the Kansas City Chiefs, he unfortunately aggravated exactly the same thigh injury and has been out since then, unable to help. That happened 4 full weeks ago, which mathematically means he should be ready to return this week if the recovery timeline is the same as before, but Quinn is being extremely cautious and doesn't want to create unrealistic expectations yet about his comeback. McLaurin returned to the team's first official practice after the break, which is already an extremely encouraging and positive sign, but it was just a light walk without any real intensity, and he still needs to make significant progress in several specific aspects of the game before receiving that full green light from the doctors. Quinn spoke emotionally about seeing McLaurin back and how that characteristic and contagious smile of his completely lit up the coach's face, clearly showing how much he personally values having that special player back in the group. He carefully explained that it wasn't an intense practice day with real physical contact, but this is pretty much how they expect the natural and gradual evolution of him and some other teammates to unfold over the crucial next few days on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this preparation week. McLaurin has been incredibly dedicated throughout the long recovery, and seeing the team finally taking this next concrete step is genuinely exciting. Quinn honestly stated that he will have a much better and more definitive answer about McLaurin's actual chances of effectively playing on Sunday after observing him practice more throughout the week, because he's already seen Will Harris practice for longer periods and can better assess that specific situation. But he can clearly say this about McLaurin: he is genuinely excited about the future possibilities because of the natural speed and fluid movement the receiver has already demonstrated, even in this extremely limited return to practice. Quinn detailed that he needs to see McLaurin doing exercises at absolutely maximum speed in practice, and then coming back the next day and repeating exactly the same feat several consecutive times without showing any issues or discomfort. When he witnesses this happening consistently, only then will the optimism drastically increase about putting him on the field on Sunday against the Broncos. But for now, let's carefully focus on these 2 important initial steps first. The simultaneous and coordinated return of McLaurin and Daniels is unlikely to have a significant practical impact on our practically non-existent chances of making the playoffs this year, but it will certainly immensely help the dynamic duo reconnect and rebuild that special and natural chemistry they had at the start of the season, carrying that renewed and positive momentum into next season when it will truly matter. Daniels literally hasn't played with McLaurin available on the field since week 2 at the beginning of the season, and the prolonged absence of that crucial connection is definitely one of the main reasons the Commanders have this absolutely terrible record of 3 wins and 8 losses, and are on the brink of complete mathematical elimination from the playoffs this season. So, the final question I leave you to ponder is, considering that Noah Brown will likely not make any real difference even upon returning, that we can draft an elite receiver like Jordan Tyson in the first round of 2026, and that Terry McLaurin may finally be back, but in a season that's already lost? Do you believe it makes more sense to let both McLaurin and Daniels rest for the remainder of this season to ensure they enter 2026 completely healthy and ready? Or does reconnecting this duo right now in meaningless games still have enough value to risk another potentially severe injury that could compromise the entire next season?